Steve, could you just kind of tell us what the first day of coaching the full squad was like, what you tried to work on, and do you run the practice or do you leave that to your assistants? Just kind of give us a feel for what today was like.
Yeah, it was a great first day. First of all, guys played really hard. Were attentive and buying in and working hard and doing all the things as coaches we'd asked for. Great energy and spirit. As far as the flow of practice, pretty standard NBA practice. Um, you have your template. You have your assistant coaches that take their responsibilities for segments of practice, and I guess it's pretty standard. I don't know how I can dress it up any better for you, but we got down to business on some details, and we also played and start to implement those details and work to get in shape and to find a rhythm and connectivity. And it was a great first day.
Brian Lewis, New York Post.
How you doing, Steve?
Good, Brian. Thanks.
I'm curious. All right. So obviously you've had individual workouts, but now you've had at least a day now, I guess, of team workouts. It's twofold. I'm wondering, when the guys have come back to you and you now have your hands on them, who has surprised you in terms of their conditioning or their progress in the off season? And some of those players that you need to work on something, what is it specifically that you've addressed that you need them to improve or hone in on or work on?
Well, it's been I think a challenge for everybody navigating this offseason because it's been so unique, so different. We have players that played in the bubble and then have been off for 3 months. We have players that didn't play in the bubble and haven't played since early March or prior, and then we have Kevin, who hasn't played for 18 months. So I have to say, for the largely the veterans of this group have come in very good shape, rhythm. They look very good. I think conditioning is more of finalizing their condition and transferring and adapting to the demands of the game at the highest level. Practice is a step towards that, and then obviously exhibition games, and then the real thing. So they still have to adapt to the demands that the game presents that are almost impossible to replicate in a pickup environment. So we're trying to go through that process as well. But I would just say the guys came in great shape, and incredibly impressed with so many of them. Feel very excited and happy for Kevin, who's had the longest layoff and the biggest challenge to overcome, a career-threatening injury. He's done everything that could have been asked, and he shows that hunger and desire, how much he loves the sport and wants to compete. So that's been fantastic. And Kyrie is, it's just been unbelievable with his ability. I mean, his ability is off the charts, and to see him sharp and executing today the way we all know he's capable of, but it's still sometimes is a shock to see, how beautiful the game is when the ball's in his hands. So, but all the guys have worked hard. The vets are leading the way, showing what it takes to be a pro in this league and to come in prepared. And as a coach, that's beautiful. So I'm proud of the guys. We had a great first day, but you look back at the length of that off season, whether it was bubble, no bubble, or a long-term injury, everyone's come in and taken care of their responsibilities.
Christian Winfield, New York Daily News.
Hey, Coach, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Question, we a lot of times we hear players come in and say they need to set the tone for training camp from day one in terms of just the level of competition, the level of intensity, the level of energy they bring to camp. I'm curious, how do you set the tone for training camp as a coach, and how is it different from maybe the ways you set the tone for training camp in the past when you were leading teams as a player?
Well, I guess there's some similarities, but it's different. I mean, as a player, you're over there in the locker room with the guys. As a leader, you're trying to make sure everyone's excited for the opportunity at hand, excited to connect and to get off to a good start through your effort, energy, buying in and making this thing, move forward in the right direction. So you can do that from a player's perspective as a leader in the locker room and on the floor. But from a coaching perspective, you're obviously thinking about a lot of different things. You're thinking about, the micro, the macro. You're thinking about individuals. You're thinking about the group. You're thinking about schedule, how to prepare this team, not only on the small details, but the larger ones. And that becomes a totally different task. So, it's exciting times for everyone. We got a lot of vets who are, ready to go, which makes our job a little bit easier. And then as a coaching staff, we want to create an environment where they're all striving, working, pushing each other to be the best they can be individually and collectively. Once you have an environment like that, you continually, sprinkle in the details and work at those details and give them an opportunity to incorporate and adapt to those teachings and to continually evolve and build from a day-to-day basis.
Alex Schiffer, The Athletic.
Hey, Steve. I know you weren't around every day in Golden State when you were there, but you did overlap with DeMarcus Cousins when he was coming off the Achilles injury. I'm curious if there's anything that you learned from that situation that you can maybe apply to Kevin and how you're starting to bring him back into the fold, or the two things are just apples and oranges.
For sure. I mean, that you could probably find some similarities, but I think, the biggest difference is the amount of time Kevin's had off, and that this season didn't start in September or October. It's given him a little bit of extra time, 18 months here. So, he's hasn't had to rush, I think, the way DeMarcus did, in a way, to try to get back into the team during the season and to be there for the playoffs. So a little bit different in that respect, but you always want to be careful and err on the side of caution when you're talking about, an incredible talent and force that Kevin is within the game and within our team. We got to protect him, and we got to try to be very thoughtful and strategic on the way we build his preparation and his adaptation to the demands, and give him the best chance to be around forevermore, not just in the short term, but create a path for longevity for him. And obviously our team's success is going to hinge on his availability at some point, and we need to make sure he's available when it counts.
Malika Andrews, ESPN.
Hi, Steve. I'm wondering whether or not the added COVID protocols are something that in practice, now that you have a large group of guys there, is something that's front and center, and where it's like, hey, actually that's 4 guys, that's too many, 2 basket, we need to spread out, or if it's something where the medical staff are coming in on the back end and having to kind of remind of what's going on.
It's a great question. I mean, I think at some point here we have to take a leap of faith in our testing protocols, because basketball is a contact sport, and you're going to have 10 guys draped all over each other up and down at some point in your practice for, however long it may be, 30, 45 minutes of practice. So to play the sport and to be prepared to play the sport at this level, let alone any level, you've got to play, and you got to, bump up against each other. And it is a leap of faith in that we're going to rely on our protocols, our medical staff, our day-to-day structure to obviously protect ourselves the best we possibly can. But at the same time, there's an evergreen risk with this virus, not just in contracting it, but all the unknowns. There's so many unknowns about it. So we'll do the best we can, but at some point we have to play the game. And, you can't not train the way you play. And that is a contact sport with a group of players on the court, many times, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys in the paint. So that's just a hazard of playing professional sports or any sport in this pandemic. And we're just doing the best we can, and we're relying on our medical staff to put us in a position to succeed the best, that's available. And I have faith in our staff. They do a great job, and the league's doing a great job. So we'll continue forward.
We got time for one more question. We'll go to Michael Grady at the Yes Network.
Hey, Coach, what key principles were you looking to communicate with your guys on day one that you expect to be a key part of the identity of the team moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, without getting into too much detail, I mean, obviously we have to be an excellent defensive team if we want to compete for a championship. And then the broad strokes are really a competitive spirit and connectivity. That's something that we need to hammer in. It's just such a competitive landscape. So many teams capable of winning a championship. It's such fine margins. And so you have to continually build. You have to continually seek a deeper buy-in, and that connectivity and spirit of competition is, at the end of the day, is non-negotiable. If you're not a great defensive team, you're not connected, and you don't have an incredible competitive spirit collectively, a championship's not in your cards, that's for sure. So we have a talented roster. We have a great group of men, and we got to build all those principles and characteristics among us individually and collectively if we want a chance to compete for the whole thing.